Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. This podcast is also proudly brought to you by onX Hunt. When I first got into hunting, I kept hearing all about public land and different access and how to find different locations to hunt. I was like, well, how are people even identifying all this stuff? Well, sure enough, I came across the number one hunting GPS app, and that is onX Hunt. If you guys want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, onX Hunt is the number one GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust onX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. It was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you if you've never used it. If you have used it, you know the power that it holds. Guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to know more about onX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt and check out their app. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. All right, guys, if you're in the market for a new hunting rifle this coming year, look no further than a Kelbley's rifle. I've been rocking their Coda rifle for the last couple seasons, and I've had great success with it. It's an amazing shooter, and every time I put one of their rifles in somebody's hands, they're like, oh, I got to get one of these. Kelbley's holds over 92 world and national records that are either broken or set on one of their actions or rifles. So they really set a higher level of accuracy. If you want to know more about Kelbley's rifles, go to kelbley.com. That's KELBLY.com. Tell them Johnny Mack sent you with Soul Seekers, and go enjoy shooting that much more in this coming hunting season. Be blessed, everybody. Go check out Kelbley Rifles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and today's episode is one that I am extremely excited and proud to bring you. We are talking and celebrating the very first buck killed by a newer hunter and somebody who I got to meet on my most recent whitetail hunt up in the state of Nebraska. Invited by Hornady Ammunition and Seth Swerzik, of the host of the Hornady podcast, we talked about Jessyca and her on the previous episode we released just this prior week. And this episode is all about her story, her perspective, her getting into hunting, the why, the how, the desire, and celebrating the successes. Because at the end of the day, as much as hunting can feel like it's a competition, it's also an opportunity for us to celebrate the wins and support our community and invest into the lives of other people. So without further ado, we got Jessyca Sortillon on the podcast. She is the digital managing editor at Outdoor Sportsman'S Group. Outdoor Sportsman'S Group it interacts with a couple different publications and TV channels and all that. So we're going to have her talk a little bit about that, but we're going to dive in and celebrate her story, because at the end of the day, as much as it is her story intertwined with mine. And, you know, here at Soul Seekers, we're all about mentorship as conservation. And I feel, I don't want to take, I feel bad on this. Like, I don't want to take any claim to it, but I do feel like I was a part of her hunt through what happened if you listen to the previous week's episode. So without further ado, Jessyca, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me, Johnny.
Oh, it's great to have you. It's great to have you. Have you ever done a podcast before?
No, this is my first time.
Yeah, I love it. I remember when I was a guest on my very first podcast, I was super nervous, and I did it over the phone, and I would just pace back and forth. I was walking in my garage, and I had a little headset on, and I think my heart was pounding. But you know what? It was so much fun, and I'm really glad I had that opportunity to do that, because that got me started into the whole podcast world and been running with it ever since. So welcome. Congratulations on shooting your first buck, but also being a guest on your very first podcast episode. So
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of firsts for me going on.
yeah, hey, if you do it once, you can do it again. That's what I'm a believer in. And so now you've shot your first buck, that
Mhm.
you've broken the ice. You know, so I grew up playing sports, but I was also a coach for several years. I coached football, boys and girls basketball, track, lacrosse, all sorts of stuff. And I remember specifically when I was coaching basketball. Do you have any sports background?
Not really. I just did I did some sports in high school, but it was mainly to get out of PE. Um, as an adult looking back, I probably would have appreciated like more sports than I did
Yeah.
as a teenager. But yeah.
Well, I totally get it. I love sports analogies, and so the reason why I ask is when I coach basketball, kids love to shoot jump shots, like three pointers, three pointers. Well, like
Mhm.
just get a lay in. Let's break the ice. Let's break the seal. Let that ball get through the net, and then from there, let's make it rain. But you got to break that ice, and that's one of the important
Yeah.
things to do. And I feel like when it comes to hunting specifically, there's this huge buildup and anticipation of what is it going to be like when I finally get my very first, whether it's a big game animal, my very first
Mhm.
animal, or in your case, your very first buck, which is a special moment. What type of buildup or anticipation, and did it follow through? And did you feel that experience on that? Did it live up to what you imagined and played in your own head?
Um, so yes and no. So I just started hunting like 3, almost 4 years now. And I've been on a lot of different hunts and I've been very unsuccessful on a lot of hunts. Like I have learned over the years that it is not as easy as it looks on TV because you only see, the hunts that, they get the big buck or they get the bear. Um, but most of the hunts, you're just out there and you're trying and it's not always going to end up with a harvest.
Yeah.
So I have learned that over the years. But going into this hunt, I was kind of prepped with, oh, there's a ton of big bucks on this property. We've been looking at trail cams. I saw lots of pictures. So I did go in like, oh, I've got this one, like this time I'm getting a buck. It's gonna be easy. But yeah, it was not easy at all.
um, I love that. So you just said it's not easy. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It didn't live up to the story that you created in your head. So what we're gonna do?
Mhm.
Let's put a pause on that, and we're gonna come back to it. Let's go back to your beginning, your origin story of why did you even want to become a hunter? Was it because you
Yeah.
worked in the outdoor industry, or is it because you had this call upon your soul, like I got to go out and
Mhm.
do this? What got it started for you?
Yeah, I would definitely say it had to do with me working in the outdoor industry, because before I worked for Outdoor Sportsman Group, I had no experience with hunting or shooting for that matter. I'd never even shot a gun before I started. And that was 2014, I think, is when I started. Actually, no, it was before that. It was like 12 years ago. So I'm from San Diego and my family didn't hunt. I didn't have like a circle of friends that hunted. I really didn't know anything about it.
Hmm.
And then I started with Outdoor Channel, and that was kind of my first like experience in the hunting, world. Um, and I was open to it, but I wasn't necessarily planning on doing it myself. Like I never thought I could, go out and shoot an animal and then take it home and cook it and all that. Um, it just didn't seem like for me at first.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but then just kind of being around hunters and I'm constantly looking at content. I'm reading the articles on our websites. I got to understand the reason behind it. Whereas coming from a background with no like where nobody hunted, I kind of looked at it as, oh, they're just shooting animals. Like I didn't get it.
Right.
So so I did understand that when I first started working in the industry, which was nice. But I still didn't think it was for me. um, and then it was 2019. I was at a holiday party for a friend of mine, and she was a hunter. So there was a lot of other hunters at this party. And one of the ladies there brought up a mentored uh, turkey hunt in the spring for women. And I don't know if it's just, everyone there's just so inviting, and, I really like the vibe, and I'm just like, something sparked, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go, I'm going to do this turkey hunt, and I'm going to do it for the first time. So that's really what like kicked it off for me. So,
Man, that is so
yeah.
cool. Were you,
Yeah.
so did you grow up, did your father, was he a hunter?
No, I grew up with my grandparents, and
Okay.
they don't hunt at all. Like, I have no one in my family that hunts. I'm
Oh,
the only one.
okay. So
Well, my little brother now is hunting, but
there you
that was
go.
before them.
I love that. So did you grow up more anti-hunter or
Kind
non-hunter?
of.
Oh, really?
I mean, I wouldn't have been like, you know, putting hunters down, but I didn't understand why they did it. Like, it wasn't really something I thought about. Um, but I was probably more on the negative side, I would say. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
So did you carry that attitude into when you started working at OSG?
no, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm always very open to hearing everyone's side on everything. I I love different backgrounds, and just learning, you know, how people are, and they can be completely different from me, and I love that. Like, I think that's kind of how, it makes the world interesting.
yeah,
So
oh yeah. I was just talking about that
yeah.
today in my class with my students because I well, actually, it led to communism. I teach social studies, and I was talking about American government and checks and
Mhm.
balances and judicial review, and all these things that
Yeah.
high school kids and middle school kids are like, yeah, 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 whatever, whatever. But as an adult and understanding how
Hmm.
politics and the American government truly impacts us today, each and every moment in our
Yeah.
society, I was like, our government is set up for individuality. And that is what makes our country so beautiful. Because when we are required to be the same, act the same, do the same, then
Hmm.
that turns us into robots and ultimately communists. And,
Yep.
that that's that's living in a very dark world. We like to add a
Hmm.
lot of color to it, right? Make it
Yeah.
bright, the spice of life, the variety. So I totally agree. I love that. Growing up in California, did you live more urban, or were you were you a little more rural, or?
Yeah. I lived in San Diego, so I was very close to the beach. It's a big town, very much a city. Um, I mean, not a lot of hunting in San Diego, obviously,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Well, what's funny is I've spent some time down in San Diego, and when you drive the interstate
Hmm.
up from San Diego north along the ocean front, there are a
Hmm.
lot of canyons and draws. Now, I
Yep.
spent that time down there once I was already a hunter, but I was driving those
Hmm.
canyons and draws. I was like, dude, there's got to be a ton of animals hiding up in there. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
true, but you can tell me that.
Mhm.
It really
Yeah, I don't know if
changes.
they hunt those canyons, but I don't know.
Yeah, right. It really changes. One of the things that I've realized, and it really opened up my eyes and allowed me to see the beauty in this world, is how you look at the landscape as now
Yeah.
being a hunter. Is like, oh, dude, that looks like a very gamey place that animals would like to
Hmm.
be versus, oh, that's just like a place where you can't build a home and that's not going to grow green grass. And do I
Right.
have a view? Or, like it's opened my eyes and added so much more variety and color to my world
Hmm.
through being a hunter. And I know for a fact that that makes my life better, and I enjoy that.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that yourself?
Yeah, no, I definitely look at land differently. Even when I'm driving, I tend to notice animals that I probably wouldn't have spotted before. Like, I'm always seeing deer out in the fields, pronghorn, and I probably would have just looked right past them before, because they do blend in. But now I have like the hunter's eye.
Yeah. No, it's so funny. Like, so I always enjoyed watching animals. Just, nature's cool. Going to the zoo is a
Mhm.
lot of fun, right?
Mhm.
I did not. One of the challenging parts, especially growing up as or becoming a Western hunter first, where you really have to put in the effort to find the animals.
Yeah.
that, you drive down the road, you're like, oh, there's a deer, there's an antelope, like what you said. Or if you go up to Estes Park, Colorado, you're like, there's elk everywhere. But when it
Right.
comes to hunting, I was like, where are the animals at? Like it seems
Yeah.
so easy. You cruise down the road and you see them all the time. Did you have like some sort of aha moment or an experience where like, whoa, this was way more challenging than I expected?
Yeah, from the first hunt, I realized how much more challenging it was. When I did the turkey hunt, I position my gun and I'm ready to shoot out, the front of the blind I was in. And then, of course, when I finally had a turkey come in, it came from behind me. I'm like, what the heck? I have to reposition everything. Like it just wasn't like you see in a lot of videos. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there's much more that goes into it. I mean, that was just a blind, but like if you're stalking or whatever, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
No one's placing the turkey exactly where you.
Right. Okay. So take us through this. You have been a hunter for 3 to 4 years.
Mhm.
You started with a turkey hunt. What
Yep.
hunts have you experienced so far, and what animals have you know, notched a tag on, or
Yeah.
have you taken home or shot or killed, or like tell us about your
Yeah.
journey and the emotions that went with it.
So I have done a variety of hunting the last couple of years. I'm a little all over the place. I'm trying anything. So any opportunity, if I talk to someone, they're like, "Oh, hey, I'm doing this hunt, and we have an extra spot," I'm like, "Oh, I would love to try that." So, um, but yeah, so I have done. So I've done pheasant hunting. I did pronghorn hunting. Those two, I did not harvest anything. I have done a bear hunt, so black bear.
Hmm.
Um,
Over bait.
I over bait. Yep, and I got a really big bear, like because you can be really picky and get when you're hunting over bait, so you can really get that mature boar,
Yeah.
which is important when you're hunting, because you're trying to manage the population. And then I've also done. I did an alligator hunt recently, so that was actually a lot of fun. Um, and then I've done oh, what else have I done? So I did get a doe, a white-tailed doe last year. That was my first deer. Um, and then I've done like prairie dog shooting. I've done hog hunting. I've done that a few times. That's a lot of fun at night. Um, I'm kind of like I said, I'm all over the place. Like I don't have one hunt that I favor yet. Like I just want to try it all.
Oh yeah.
I have not done elk hunting yet, so I think that's gonna be my maybe next year. I want to try that.
I
So
love that. You and I have a lot in common. I don't know if you realize this. I know I shared a little bit of my story with you when we had dinner one of the nights, but um,
Mhm.
so I'm assuming based off what you just shared, a bear was your very first big game animal.
Yeah, yeah.
I have not met a single person beyond myself that my very first big game animal I ever shot was
Mhm.
also a black bear.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes, and that is what kicked off everything with Soul Seekers. Was
Mhm.
and I think that's also not. I think I know that sets you and I apart because not only did we shoot an animal that a lot of people are fearful of, but
Right.
also we shot an animal that is one of the, if not linchpin animals when it comes to anti-hunting propaganda, right?
Yeah. I did get some backlash with that one actually. I was surprised about that, but yes.
Who'd you get the backlash from? Just like in general or on social media, or how'd that go down?
No, from people I know, just from friends, and yeah, it just upset more people than I realized it was going to. But it's
Really?
just they don't understand the reason behind it. Um, so yeah, I didn't think about it, I guess, with a bear. For me, being in the industry and like being around hunting, I understood like why you hunt bear. And I think a lot of people don't that are non-hunters.
There's a
So
lot of hunters that are also not comfortable
yeah,
hunting predators. Um,
yeah,
which, I mean, to each their own, but at the same time, we all have to support hunting
Mhm.
across the board, not just
Right.
individuality of certain species. So that's
Yeah.
fascinating. So
Mhm.
was this a hunt in the lower 48, or did you go up to Canada, or what'd you?
I went to Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then were you able to bring the meat home?
So I was not able to bring the meat home on that hunt, but I am getting the hide and the skull. But it'll be like another 6 months before I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
One of the things, my experience is prior to me shooting my very first bear,
Mhm.
I never ate wild game.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What
So
about venison? Not
no,
even venison?
no. I w- so I went on this hunt being like, well, it's the only season that is open where I can actually dedicate time, right? Like I was a high school football coach and school teacher, and that's fall and that's hunting season, and how do I get away for more than, you know, a day, but it's not whitetail woods where you can pop out in the morning or pop out in the evening. Yet Western big game hunting, you have to go for an extended time. You got to put in
Yeah.
the miles, boots on the ground, all that. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm a bear hunter. Like that,
Mhm.
that was the thing that got me going. And I find it extremely beautiful because I'm going to be giving a seminar here in February at the Western Hunting
Mhm.
and Conservation Expo in Salt Lake City, about how to talk about hunting and
Yeah.
how to talk about hunting because I have experiences of having to talk about hunting beyond just shooting a deer or a turkey because
Mhm.
everyone's like, oh, yeah, you hunt. Okay, you shoot deer. We're kind of
Right.
comfortable with that. We understand that. May not agree with it, but it's like
Right.
a long lineage of history. Or turkeys. Yes, turkeys.
Mhm.
Thanksgiving, like whatever. Bears? What? Predators?
Yeah.
Do you eat them? Can you eat them? Oh man, and then the anthropomorphology or whatever that exact word is, however I pronounced it
Yeah. Yeah.
right there of, teddy bears. Oh, you can't,
Mhm.
kids don't grow up with little deer and buck stuffed animals as much as they do a teddy bear.
Mhm.
And so it's just really fascinating and I want to commend you and also encourage you to speak up about bear hunting and how important it is
Yeah.
because I view it as the actual linchpin to, to everything else, especially being from the state of Washington and seeing what
Mhm.
happened with our spring bear hunting getting taken away and them,
Mhm.
wanting to take away fall bear. And currently you can have 2 bear tags over the counter, just like that.
Oh,
But,
really?
but they're taking seasons away for, horrible, horrible reasons, not
Mhm.
actual, biological science-based management. So,
Right. Right.
so that's fascinating. You shot a bear. Was it close range?
Yeah, I'm trying to think how far it was. It was maybe 40 yards or so. And one shot he dropped. Um, it's not an easy hunt though. You think shooting over bait, I mean, so that first day that I was hunting, I mean, I had bears trying to get up in the stand with me, and it was terrifying for my first like day hunting. You kind of learn how to yell at them so they run away. But I had like a really annoying like teenager bear,
Uh
and
huh.
he was bluff charging me, trying to get up in the stand. Like, yeah.
You're like, I don't want to put my tag on you, but I'm gonna if you
Yeah.
don't leave
I
me
mean, it
alone.
got really close. It got really close because he was not leaving me alone. I'm like, okay, you're not the bear that I came for, but
Did you ever have fear of bears in the woods?
no.
Oh, okay. So that like you handled that situation probably a lot better than most people.
Yeah, I also had never come face to face with a bear in the woods, so that I mean, if I had, maybe it'd be different, but I don't see them when I'm walking around. It's pretty rare,
Yeah.
They kind of keep away from people, so
Uh huh. I
yeah.
grew I grew up watching Davy Crockett, the TV show,
Uh-huh.
And, he would always grin down a bear, if you're familiar with that
Yeah.
show. But on those old shows, they portrayed bears as like the biggest, meanest,
Yeah.
nastiest, gonna get you boogeyman type animal out there.
Yeah.
Um, and then I had a really uh, traumatizing event when I was going into third grade on my very first backcountry backpack trip. I was
Mhm.
multiple miles along the Pacific Crest Trail in the state of Washington, and some guy that I never met who was invited by my father and his uncles
Mhm.
pretended to be a bear outside of my tent at night. And
Oh,
this,
no.
I'm just, what, 7 years old, never camped in a tent outside of like a state park or something like that. And
Mhm.
traumatized me. Anyway, so I carried that
Yeah.
fear of bears in the woods all the way through
Yeah.
until I shot my very first bear at 30 yards and I stared it right in the eyes. And
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, like talk about facing your fears. So you have a really interesting perspective saying that you didn't really go into that with that looming over
So
you.
so let me back up for a minute. It's not that I mean, I didn't go into the woods immediately afraid that a bear is gonna get me. I guess that's how I answered it. If I were to see a bear in the woods, yeah, I would have been afraid. But I just didn't like anticipate ever really walking around seeing them. And I do a lot of camping. I have had actually it's like a couple years ago. I was camping and early in the morning I went out to let my dogs out to use the bathroom and there was a bear like 15 feet and he was like at our picnic table standing on his two legs, right? So I mean that was scary. I grabbed my dogs, went back in the camper. Like, I mean, in that case, yes, I was scared.
Right.
But I wasn't like, fearful just walking in the woods or anything like
Yeah.
that.
And being an
But
adult, you don't carry that childhood trauma if you
yeah,
never experienced that, where it's like your brain works and with more reason. Like,
yeah,
I know how to keep distance from me and that bear. It's not going to come.
right.
Yeah, I get that. Um, so this all you've experienced all these hunts in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
What do you think about becoming a hunter?
Um, I mean, it's a lot of work. I've been on so many hunts, but I am nowhere near an expert hunter. Like, I mean, I feel like every hunt I go on, I am gaining like a little more knowledge each time, and I'm getting more comfortable with it. But there's still a lot to it and a lot to learn. So I feel like I still have quite a ways to go in my hunting journey, and maybe I mean, I'll probably always be learning, but um, I do feel like this past year I'm kind of getting to the point where like I feel like I know what I'm doing, and it's taken me a while to get to that point. So that's been a good feeling.
Yeah, I started my hunting journey um, at 31 years old. Right, I took my hunter safety at 30. By the time I really got out into the woods, 31, and I was married at that point, and I go out hunting for the day or, an
Um,
afternoon and come home and my wife be like, "Hey, how was it?" I'm like, "Well, it was great, but like that was it." She's like, "Well, did you see anything?" No. I didn't even see a squirrel. I went out and spent so much time afield never even seeing animals. And
mhm.
that was extremely challenging. I knew that there was this like
Yes.
beautiful reward on the other side, uh,
Yeah.
but I can see how a lot of people would want to give up hunting, being like, well, you know, as a school teacher, I know that you have to be successful within a certain amount of time. Otherwise, you'll just naturally give up. And that's how
Mhm.
students are. Um, have you faced that challenge, or is it because you work within the industry and you see the success, you know it's eventually going to come?
No, I've definitely experienced that, and I experienced that on the recent whitetail hunt in Nebraska. So, I I mean, I actually kind of did give up halfway through, and then I tried again, and you know, I thought I'm like, wow, I must be terrible, like, or I just have the worst luck because I just wasn't seeing anything for days. Um, but I at least had to keep trying, through the end of the season. I mean, otherwise, I'm definitely not going to get anything if I don't keep doing it. So,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so take us through. You made it to camp uh the first half of the week before I even showed up.
Yes.
So before going to camp, you were shown game camera pictures, seeing
Yep.
deer on, be like, hey, this is what you can expect seeing here.
Yeah.
Um, take a
Really big deer, huge racks, like, or we're like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Yeah.
like shooting fish in a bucket, right? Like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. And like take us through your mindset, the ebbs and flows of the first part of the week.
Okay. So I got there on a Friday evening and then first went out Saturday morning. So I was really optimistic, really excited, like, oh, this is gonna happen. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna get my first buck, maybe even on the first day, and then I can go home early, get stuff done or whatever at home. Um, that is not how it went. Uh, the first morning, I was in the West Tower stand, which is like an elevated open blind. Um, it was a great blind because you could see 360 around you. Not so great when the temperatures dropped and it was freezing, but you kind of push through it. Um, but so that first morning saw so much activity, tons of does, lots of younger bucks. I did not see like that mature buck I was looking for, but I was still like super hopeful because I was seeing deer all over the place. At one point, I was surrounded by like probably like five does, a young buck. I mean, they were everywhere.
Mhm.
So it was a really like busy morning just watching animals. And then later that afternoon, I was at the same stand. I saw nothing. Like I probably saw like one doe. I'm like, what is going on? Um, and then there were two other hunters during that time. And so this is still the first day. The other two hunters both got their bucks that afternoon,
Ah.
which is great. Like I was super happy for them. Like, okay, I'm next, right? Like I'm gonna get a deer next. Um, didn't see anything the rest of that evening. So I had to go back and you know, I'd be hunting the next morning. I needed to get up again the next day and do it. Um, but I was the only one hunting at this point. So the next 3 days I hunted. I switched different stands. I tried different tactics with the grunt calls, or the antler rattle bag. Um, and I just didn't see any deer. Like I'd see an occasional doe, or like a spike buck, but I never saw like a big buck that was worth shooting. Like not what I came for. And that was really frustrating.
Mhm.
And so I hunted through Tuesday, which the plan was to hunt Saturday through Tuesday. So we had 4 days. And I was driving. So I actually went back out Wednesday morning, that morning, to see if I could possibly get a buck before I drove home. And I never saw any deer. Like, um, and when you're sitting for so long, like it just your body starts to hurt and you're tired, and it's been days of that. And so I did go home with an empty cooler on that Wednesday, and I was actually really bummed. I mean, that's just how it is. That's how hunting is. So I'm like, it just wasn't in the cards for me,
Mhm.
that hunting trip. um and then so I get home on Thursday. Seth sent me a picture of the trail cam photo of a big buck, which was kind of in the area of this where I was hunting. I'm like, oh, they do exist. They're still out there. I'm like, "Oh, maybe I should drive back out there and keep trying," because the season went through Sunday, so there's still a few days left. Um, so then I'm like, I'm gonna go back out and try again. Like I've got to at least try. So I got back out Friday, and I got there early enough to get out in a stand that evening. Um, and I saw nothing. So I'm like, um, so yeah, that Friday evening, I'm just like, did I just drive 5 hours again to just sit here, and I'm gonna go home with an empty cooler? Like, what am I doing? Because I have a family and I have a lot of stuff going on at home. Am I just wasting my time? But again, I know they're out here. Like, if it's meant to happen, it's gonna happen. Like, I just need to see the buck so I can make it happen. um, but yeah, and then so went back out again the next day, Saturday, when you were hunting as well. And that morning, I it was like 7 minutes before legal shooting light, and like a really nice buck walks by my blind about 50 yards, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't shoot it. So it was like a slap in the face. um and anyhow, he was following a doe, and they went off to the east, which was towards your where you were at. And I mean, he was gone by the time I could shoot. And so I was like, dang it, that's going to be the only deer I see today, isn't it? And sure enough, I saw like nothing the rest of that morning. Um, I think 20 minutes after that, I had one doe kind of walking around. And then 10 minutes after that is when I heard a shot in your direction. And I'm like, oh my God, Johnny got the deer I saw. It wasn't the same deer, but I thought,
Yeah.
and I was excited. I'm like, okay, I'm excited, but here I am again, the last hunter, and I'm probably not even going to get an opportunity to shoot. So it kind of plays with your mind a bit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it was exciting to hear, we were texting back and forth and you got a nice buck. And then you were saying, there's another good shooter buck, like really close to you, they were still walking in that area that you're hunting. So there was like a hot doe in that area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I packed my stuff up and I went over to the stand that you were in. And I'm like, okay, I've got to make this happen, right? I'm enjoying the whole hunting process, but I really didn't want to get up again next day and have to sit in a stand again. So I get over to that blind, and I did a grunt call, and within 10 minutes, I had a buck come in. So he was a
Awesome.
younger buck. Yeah. There were definitely bucks in that area. So I had a younger buck come in, and I was watching it, and I contemplated, like, do I just shoot this buck so I have a deer? But
Yep.
he wasn't a mature deer, and I wasn't excited about it, and I didn't want my first buck to be like a last ditch effort to get a buck. Like I wanted it to be the buck, that I wanted. So I didn't shoot him, and I didn't see any more deer for a few hours. Like I did an all day sit that day. So I mean, I did a rut call, and then I did the antler bags probably every 30, 40 minutes, and I just nothing. I mean, it was so quiet. And it wasn't until later in the evening, I think there was about an hour left of shooting light, I finally had a buck walk in, and he was walking straight towards me. So I watched him. I mean, it happened really fast. So like um I could see his antlers were big, and he was, kind of thick, and he was big enough. He was the buck. That was the one that was, I was gonna get. So I didn't waste time. I set up, and I'm waiting for him just slightly turn because he was walking head on to me. And the second he turned, I shot right high shoulder, and he instantly sprinted. And there was like some bushes and trees out in the distance. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose this buck. Like, this is my only chance. So I shot again just in case. And then I saw him just dive into like this ditch. Right. And I knew he's down, like he's down. So then, like, yes, my heart was racing. What I did not expect is that, like, I broke into tears. And I don't get emotional about stuff, but like, I think just the whole week, I was so stressed out, like, because you go into it thinking, oh, this can be easy, and then it's not, and then you keep trying, and then it just isn't working out. So when it finally works out, it just like hits you and like floods you.
Yeah.
So it was crazy.
I mean, I can see the emotions hitting you right now
Yeah,
talking about this and
yeah,
reliving it. It's real. That is the
yeah,
power of hunting right there.
yeah.
I always say hunting has the power to transform lives.
Hmm.
That you experience it right then and there in that
Yeah,
moment.
it was. I'd never experienced that feeling before. Like, and I've been on other hunts, and I've gotten stuff, but I mean, this one really made me work for it, and I really got like down about it, like on myself. Like, I'm like, man, I'm just really bad at this, or why can't I do it? And everybody else seems to get a buck, no problem. So I think at that moment it was like just like relief,
Yeah.
like I did
Yeah.
it.
Just so you know, the
Mhm.
people don't typically just start hunting and killing animals right away. I
Right.
didn't even kill a big game animal, which was that black bear I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Took me 4 years. I
Oh,
was
wow.
hunting for 4 years before I even killed an
Mhm.
animal.
Yeah.
Before I even saw one I could shoot, because at that point, remember, I was willing to shoot anything. Like if it was legal,
Right.
I'm shooting it. So,
Yeah.
uh, these perspectives are so healthy for us to talk about, right? Like
Mhm.
the way you view it. You got into it 3 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago. You're an adult. You have a family of your own. You work in
Yep.
the outdoor industry. You have these. What you're feeling is your own pressures that you're applying on yourself.
Yep. Yep.
Like is it that you didn't wanna be a failure? Is it that you didn't wanna go home without meat? What do you think it was that was causing all this anxiety or self-induced pressure?
I didn't want to be a failure to myself. Because I put so much into it, like preparing for it. Um, I mean, just being out there, like taking the time for the whole week. I mean, that's a lot for my family for me to
Yeah.
be gone.
Yeah.
Um, so I was just like, I put so much into it, and then to go home, like I thought for sure I was gonna go home empty-handed again, and I'm like, I can't have done all this for nothing. I mean, if that's the way it happened, that's the way it happened. I still got a lot of experience. But the fact that I got a buck right at the end there, like it just made it all like, worthwhile. So
You know, I wanna talk to you about a couple different things here because I reflect on things all the time. Like I'm
mm,
constantly just internal reflection, inward reflection leads to outward correction. I want to always be a better human being, a better person, a better hunter, father, husband, all that. There's a couple different views of hunting specifically, and one of them is from Native American culture. And Native American
mhm.
culture talks about an animal. You shoot the animal that presents itself to you.
Oh, okay.
And I've heard that shared to me a couple different times, and I'm like, that's hard not to disagree with, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is your animal. Kind of the saying of a hunt works out exactly how it's supposed to work out.
Right.
Right? Like you can put in
Yeah.
all this effort, all this work, all this like desire, but at the end of the day, the animal needs to also present itself to you. And
Yeah.
coming from you know, not growing up in that type of culture, hearing that, it really challenged me, especially because being a newer hunter, it's shoot the first
Mhm.
thing that's legal, at least from my perspective, to
Uh-huh.
getting to this point where, okay, now I want to shoot a better representation of class of the species.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never shot a buck before in your entire life, and you're seeing bucks, you're not shooting them.
Right.
Like and by the way, I'm not casting guilt or shame on you. I'm just bringing up
I don't
these.
feel guilty.
Yeah, perfect. um, when you hear something like that, like shoot the animal that presents itself to you, what's your
Mhm.
what's your first reaction to it?
I mean, I've had a lot of like I think the very first deer that I saw on the hunt, I mean, it was just like a spike buck, a little one. I personally would prefer to give it a few years to, get bigger. And um, I'm, it's really important to me, like behind any hunt, like I do it for a reason. Like I do make sure whatever hunt I'm doing, like there is a purpose for me to kill this animal, right? Like I'm not just going to shoot anything. So I do get that take on it. Um, but for me, I wanted to get an older buck. I mean, I didn't get the biggest buck by any means, but it was big enough
It's beautiful.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was mature enough where I felt right about taking him. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So when I heard that, and I was talking to Tim Corcoran. So Tim
Mhm.
Corcoran runs Native American rites of initiation passages for
Mhm.
youth and fathers, and um,
Yeah.
really interesting uh, guest. He's been on the podcast twice, and it By the way, those are great episodes if you ever want to go back and check him out,
Okay.
because he runs a program called Purpose Mountain. And the whole
Mhm.
idea is like discovering yourself and your purpose and how you interact with this world. And then Twin Eagles Wilderness School up in Sandpoint, Idaho, he runs that as well. So
Okay.
fascinating individual. So that's one way that I look at it. The other way is law of attraction, right? Like
Mhm.
you envision it, you dream it, you envision it, you
Mhm.
speak it, you manifest it, and it'll come to fruition.
Yep. Yep.
Are you familiar with the law of attraction?
Yes, yeah. No, I believe it.
Okay, so you totally
Yeah.
believe it. Okay, so
Mhm.
my challenge and question to you is,
Mhm.
do you think your negative mindset,
Mhm.
once you got into the hunt, affects your hunt to uh, how it played out versus, you know what? No, I'm turning the car around. I'm gonna go drive another 5 hours. I'm gonna
Mhm.
go get that deer. I'm gonna get that buck.
Yeah.
Do you think that has anything to play into this?
Well, yeah, so if I didn't go back, I definitely would not have gotten a buck. So, I mean, for sure. Um, but yeah, just like the days in the stand where I was kind of getting, down about it, not working out, I did tell myself like, hey, I've got to keep trying or it's not gonna happen. Um, I was constantly looking the whole time. Like I didn't give up in that way, but like mentally, yeah, it was, kind of pulling me back and forth, I think.
Yeah. Do you have
Um,
any sort of faith background or religious background that you pull from?
yeah, Christian.
Okay.
Mhm.
So do you find yourself like sending prayers out to the big man upstairs and be like, God, send me a deer? Or like, how does that play into you and hunting?
I I I kind of don't because I feel like if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, right? Like I don't know how to explain it. I do pray about stuff, but I did not pray for a deer to come out. Like I felt like if I kept trying, like if it's meant to be, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So
It's really
if that
interesting perspective. I got challenged with that question when I was
yeah,
a college athlete. And,
yeah.
you lead, especially like in football, because
Mhm.
warriors, which as football players, we think we're warriors going into battle and,
Yeah.
Lord God, protect us and lead us to victory. Well, is not the other team also praying, lead us to victory as well type
Yeah.
concept? So ultimately, do these prayers get answered? Do they mean anything? Is there true like alignment with it? These are the types of things that when I'm sitting in a
Mhm.
deer blind or when sitting on a hillside glassing a mountain, like I'm constantly chewing on. And I,
Yeah.
I love to get into the psychology of other people of what they think about how hunting goes. Or is it just you just got to be in the right place at the right time and like it is just complete randomness?
I don't think it's complete randomness. But I mean, so hunting the bucks during the rut was a little random because they just kind of run through whenever they felt like it. But um, I mean, there is some skill, like you got to know kind of where the deer are and um, you know, notice those signs and different things. But I mean, yes, they do have to appear for for you.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so what gun and caliber were you shooting?
Oh, so I had a Browning X-Bolt Speed, and 7 PRC, and
Seven
it
P.
is yeah. Um, so that gun, so it had a Ovix camo on it. It is the most beautiful gun. If you haven't, I don't know if you got a good look at it on the hunt, but like it's a really nice looking gun and it shoots really well. But yeah, so that's what I got my deer with, and the first shot actually did hit my deer in the shoulder. The second shot that I just kind of went for it. I mean, I probably didn't even aim that second one because I was so nervous that the deer's taken off. I didn't even hit it the second time. So
Oh,
it was the first shot that took him down.
oh
Yeah,
wow. So
yeah,
let me ask you this. 7 PRC, that's a big
hmm
caliber. And
yeah,
I, I got into hunting And it wasn't until this year I got my very first long action. I was shooting short action
Uh-huh.
up until this
Oh
point.
yeah.
This hunt, the hunt that you and I experienced together,
Mhm.
was the very first time I shot an animal with a long action. Uh,
Oh wow.
yeah. So what made you choose 7 PRC, and that being the caliber that you went with?
Yeah, so at first I was going to use a different gun that I had, and then I switched it last minute, and I decided to keep the same caliber. That's why I went with the 7 PRC actually,
Well,
because I had another gun that I had been wanting to take on a hunt, and then this Browning X-Bolt 2. Like when I got that, I'm like, okay, no, this is the one I'm taking. But
Well, I love that. But what made you choose the long action? I mean, you're being a female, a smaller
Mhm,
frame, a Magnum cartridge, has a lot of recoil kick. That
mhm,
gun that you're shooting is not the heaviest, so you
yeah.
feel that shot. Um,
Mhm.
what made you choose a long action versus any other caliber that you could have gone with?
I think just because I could, like I got to pick whatever I wanted to take, and I guess I am smaller, and I've been, I've started lifting weights recently this last 6 months, so I'm getting stronger, and I'm just trying to push it. And yeah, I mean so it definitely has a kick, but I handle it pretty well, I think. So
Well, and let me
yeah.
ask you this: did you even feel the kick when you shot?
No, no, I was in the zone. Like I didn't feel it. Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? That is like the most fascinating thing about hunting, how
Mhm.
your ears turn off, you don't hear the shot, or you don't feel
Yeah.
the kick, or at least in my experiences. I don't know. I can't speak for you in that regard.
Yeah.
So,
I did. My ears were ringing after it, though. I will say. Yeah.
was your muzzle outside the window of the blind?
Yes.
Oh
Mhm.
man, so you really got yourself good, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so you shot this buck. You
Mhm.
send Seth a text message. We
Mhm.
hear the gunshots go off. You already heard the podcast where I tell my perspective of we're up there cleaning the deer, my buck that
Yeah.
we shot. We hear gunshots. It's like, oh, she got one, and we're super jacked for you. Um, at that moment of you saw it go down,
Mhm.
talk us through the emotions of that. You already said like you started crying, which you did not
Yep.
expect, and all that,
Yeah.
but now to the point where like, okay, I'm climbing out of this blind. I'm gonna go look at this buck. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go
I
like,
packed my stuff up so quick and like went over there. I didn't go up to the deer because I knew you guys were all coming. Um, but I did, like, I could see it down, so I confirmed, yes, it is down. And I was just, honestly, it felt like you guys took forever. I know it was only like 10 minutes, but I wanted to walk up to the deer really bad. But I waited, and it just felt like a really long wait because I was really excited to finally meet my buck.
yeah, yeah. So when you got to lay hands on it for the very first time,
Mhm.
like, I know obviously we were filming for Soul Seekers, so this is gonna be in a part of this episode that's gonna launch on season 5 of Soul Seekers on Carbon TV,
Mhm.
which is super super cool. But was it a sigh of relief? Was it a hell yeah, I did it? Like a Rocky Balboa moment at the top of the stairs, in front of the art museum in Philadelphia? Like, was it a monkey off the back? What were you
It was
experiencing?
all of that. It was all of it. Yeah. Like I felt like relieved, like you said, because I was just so anxious up to that point, and then overwhelmed, and then when I did it, it was just like, like, and then I was proud of myself for actually sticking to it, making the trip back, not giving up. So
Yeah. Okay,
I felt
so
pretty good about
you were
that.
all by yourself when you spotted the buck and you shot
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Going through that process solo, and
Mhm.
then going to the recovery of having other people to celebrate you and your
Mhm.
moment, what do you think is more sweeter? The solo moment, or actually having it be with other people?
Um, so I enjoyed both. I felt like so when I was by myself and I shot the buck, I didn't feel like anybody was gonna, if I screwed up, like nobody's gonna. say, they're not going to tease me about it. Like I had that, like I didn't have pressure from that. Um, but it was nice when everybody came over. Like, I mean, you guys all knew how long I had been hunting and trying to get a buck. So it was cool to see all of you also excited when you came over. Like it just made me feel even better about it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I used to snowboard for a long time. I'd always get a season's pass, and I'd drive 2 hours up to the mountains and hit up the slopes at nighttime. Well, it turns
Hmm.
out that like I ended up snowboarding a lot by myself, and
Uh-huh.
I would do the same runs over and over, and same tricks or the same same whatever. And it
Hmm.
got to a point where I was like, man, I really wish I had people to experience things with, to be like, did you see
Yes.
that? Then, celebrate the
Yeah.
awesomeness. And I take that and I carry it into hunting, that there is a part of solo hunting that is like,
Hmm.
I didn't rely on anyone else but my own know-how,
Yeah.
know-how, my grit, my courage, my skill
Hmm.
set, which is really empowering and special. And I still rather hunt with other people. Like that's how
Yeah.
I come from. What's your experience?
Yeah. So I guess I didn't feel alone. Like even though in that moment, when I was hunting and I got the deer, you guys were still like part of the camp, like
Mm,
you're still, I didn't feel alone. Um, I have been on hunts where I have someone with me and it is nice to talk to someone and get tips from them, because usually I'll have like a mentor, um, or someone that, has done the same hunt before and they can give me tips. So I do appreciate that a lot. Um, I think it's also nice that I'm gaining enough knowledge where I can be comfortable on my own if I need to. I don't think I go out and hunt for days alone in that way. But with a camp and then you go out for a day, or half a day alone. I could do that, but I still do like the group setting and having someone there to experience it with. Yeah, for sure.
beautiful, beautiful. I love that. I love that. So one question I haven't asked you yet is: you got into hunting. You're an adult. You have children. Uh, you're married. Does your husband
Mhm.
hunt?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
He has said he's willing to try it. So I got to think of the right hunt to take him on. But he's not hunted before. So and
What is that relationship like in regards to him watching you go through this process and step
Mhm.
into the ownership of, you're a hunter. You're not
Yeah,
becoming a hunter. You're not thinking about hunting. You are there. You are a hunter.
yeah.
And him not being a part of that, is it like, oh man, I got to experience that for myself? Or what type of
Mhm.
conversations are you guys having?
Yeah, it's not for him. So he doesn't really feel the need to do it. I think if we were to do it as a family, so it's us and our son, I think it could be a fun family experience, and I think he'd be willing to do that for sure. But as far as like him starting his own journey in hunting, I think he's not there.
Hmm.
It's just he doesn't feel the need to. He also says, I'm already doing it, so I can, bring the
Yeah.
meat home. So
Yeah. It's really interesting that you say that last line is like, well, you're
mhm.
already doing it, so I don't necessarily need to.
Yeah.
Um, I totally believe in like tribal roles of like, everyone has a role within society. Some
Mhm.
of us are hunter gatherers, some of us are
Yeah.
the ones that are staying at the camp and taking care of everything. Like everyone has roles,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying it's gender specific or not. It's just it is what it is.
Right.
I
Right.
find it really fascinating when people will say, "Well, you are already bringing the meat home, so I
Mhm.
don't need to, or I don't,"
Yeah.
because hunting is so multifaceted that yes, it
Mhm.
is about the meat, and it's about a lot of other
Yeah.
things, and I
Yeah.
think
He's not
that,
very outdoorsy, so
yeah, well, you always get to start somewhere, and that's the beauty
yeah.
of it. But you also live in Colorado, which just
Mhm.
recently in early November, Proposition 127 and the
Mhm.
cougar hunting, cat hunting ban, that was a big deal. And
Yeah.
and so why I'm so a big proponent on talking about hunting and having people hunt is so that they can provide an experience for themselves and be like, okay, I respect this, and
Hmm.
I'm going to vote a certain way in order to make sure hunting lasts and is protected, rather than
Right.
constantly having ballot box biology strip and attack hunting constantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is your, I mean, you work in the outdoor industry, so it's different,
Hmm.
but have you seen that firsthand really shift within yourself of like, whoa, I'm a part of this now. I need to actually start advocating for hunting more. Kind of like
Hmm.
how you were shocked by the results that you got from your friend circle when they're like, "Oh, you killed a bear?" Like,
Yeah.
I can't believe you.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no, I have seen a difference. I Let me think about this for a second. Um, I mean, I look at things differently, and I do look at it from a hunter standpoint. I mean, I probably would have looked at that uh mountain lion uh law that they were trying to put in effect differently years ago.
Hmm.
Well, before I worked, in the industry, but what was the question again?
Yeah, no worries, no stress on this. This idea of people that don't hunt,
Yeah,
they view ballot box biology of like, oh,
yeah,
yeah, we don't want you to kill cats. They're cute, they're cuddly, or yeah, you
right.
can't kill lynx. Well, it's already a federally mandated protected species. You actually can't hunt them already, but yet they throw it in there to tug on the heartstrings of people that don't
Yeah.
know. So do you find yourself wanting or needing to stand up and speak for hunting more in
Okay.
a
Yeah,
different
that's
way?
okay, so I remember what I was saying. So I do, and I'm still getting more and more like, so being a female hunter, it's even a little it's a little different too, because I feel like I have to stand up even more in a way.
Yeah.
And I am realizing, because I work in the outdoor industry, and even though I'm a beginner hunter, but I also have no background. Like, I'm definitely not the average hunter. Like, you know, I think I have a voice that I need to use more to kind
Yes.
of, yeah. So I'm getting there.
You
But
find yourself
I need,
carrying a torch and being like, you know what? I was blessed with this opportunity. I need to
yeah,
use it. I need to share my perspective with the world.
yeah, because so my audience is completely different than like a known hunter's audience, someone that's been doing it all their life. I mean, my group of friends, people I know, most of them are not hunters actually.
Mm,
So when I share like the stories of my hunts and stuff, some of them are fascinated, they want to learn more about it. Some of them are completely turned off. So I got to explain it. I mean, that I feel like I do need to voice even a little bit more for that side, you know.
yeah, yeah. It's it's also interesting, and this is the beautiful thing of what hunting is that it takes all these different perspectives from life and the world and how we interact with it, and puts a spotlight on the specific moment of sending an arrow or squeezing a trigger and
Hmm.
hitting our target. And that
Hmm.
split second of you can't take that bullet back once it's gone down range
Yeah.
is the difference of someone loving you and hating you all at the exact same time, or
Yep.
gaining friendships and losing friendships, or it's so polarizing. I find
Hmm.
it's beautiful. It's fascinating. Now, at least that's my
Hmm.
take on it. And that's what I'm gathering from you as well,
Yeah.
hearing you talk about this and your friend circles. And um, did, when your friends were talking about bear with you,
Hmm. Hmm.
was there a conclusion to the conversation, or was it let's ignore it and pretend like it didn't happen, and let's just keep going on?
it's more like they didn't want to discuss it, and that was like the end of it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there
So
was no discussion.
Yes.
So,
Okay. So this is why I'm doing my talk in Salt Lake
mhm,
City, of how to talk about hunting, because
yeah,
in human psychology, anger covers hurt and fear. And
yeah,
so when people start to get angry because
mhm,
they are uncomfortable with the situation, it's more likely and often that it's covering some sort of hurt or some sort
yeah,
of fear within their own life. Because through
mhm,
experiences, we filter it through our perception and our interpretation of the events, and that leads to thoughts, which leads to feelings, which leads to emotions, actions, and then actions lead to consequences.
uh-huh,
And if we can step back and remove ourselves and see that people react with claws and fangs, that animal comes out in them, it's because something happened in their life where they were hurt, they were let down, they're fearful. Um, a lot of humanity carries trauma from their
mhm,
childhood, from the experiences of, whatever it is. I mean, every Disney movie, like full on, we grew up, you're roughly my age.
mhm,
We grew up watching Disney.
yeah,
Well, look at every single storyline of a Disney movie. One parent or both parents end up dying. And
yeah,
like if you objectively look at the storylines, you're like, oh my gosh, I never realized that. Simba loses his dad.
mhm,
Bambi loses his mom. Like the list goes down the line where all these animals are losing parents. And so we emotionally tie ourselves to these stories and to our childhood.
mhm,
And when we can articulate, and this is why First Amendment's so powerful, when we can articulate the freedom of speech and talk through things,
yeah,
that is, if we don't need to change people's opinions, we just need to hold space for them to
mhm,
process their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions, for them to lower their guard of hurt and fear and be like, oh,
mhm,
okay, I don't want to hunt, but you know what? I get it. I understand where you're coming from.
yeah, or at least want to understand, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
And not everyone needs to hunt, but I sure would really appreciate you voting for the things that I love to do, right?
mhm,
Look at me. I'm not a bad person and I love to hunt. Therefore, when it comes to ballot box biology, which is going to be a thing that we're constantly going to have to fight from here on out,
mhm,
think of me and think about how I still want to participate in this. And you voting no or yes or whatever, and how that impacts me as a human being, not just your feelings and emotions and the trauma
right,
you carry from your childhood.
yeah.
Um, what do you think about me sharing that with you right now? Are you starting to like gears turn and be like, oh man, you're right. I'm picturing a specific person right now and like I can't wait to talk to them or um
No, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Like, when you're angry, it's an emotion, and you're kind of covering up other feelings and stuff. And really, you just need to communicate with people. um, and it's okay if you don't agree with someone. Like, I don't have to agree with, and like, you to be my friend. Like, I don't have to agree with everyone. I can understand that you have a reason, and it's not like a horrible reason, obviously. If someone's doing something bad, that's a whole other thing. But um I can understand that you have different reasons for doing things than I do. And we're all different people, and as long as we communicate and discuss, if we're not happy with something, and maybe we can learn, like, hey, maybe there is a reason and a need for this. um and then, yeah.
I love it. Beautiful. Beautiful. And your ability to talk about hunting is only going to get more solidified and concrete the more you experience it, right? And
Yeah,
the more you experience it. Everyone has opinions. Very few people have perspectives, and perspectives come through experiences that are lived. Um,
yep, that is absolutely right.
so I love it. Well, it's December of 2024. You have
Hmm.
officially killed your very first buck. What is on the horizon for you? What's next?
Well, next week, no, in 2 weeks, I'm going pheasant hunting. So I'm hoping I can get my first pheasant.
I'm rooting
So
for you. Good luck.
yeah. Yeah. I've been on quite a few pheasant hunts, and I mean, we really didn't see any roosters that year. And now I have not tried it in a couple years. So I feel like I'm starting from the beginning,
Yeah.
but I think I have a pretty good shot this time. Let's see.
Oh, I love it. And then in the future, as far as whatever, like you've wanted to kill your first buck, like
Yeah.
that is a bucket list
Mhm.
moment. You check that off.
Yep.
What else beyond that?
Oh,
What do
so
you want to hunt? Like what's your
yeah,
targets?
I do want to do elk. So next year I think I'm going to try for that. I'm in Colorado, so obviously we have elk. It's like one of the prime states to go elk hunting. So I do realize I need to prepare for that. I mean, it's not an easy hunt at all. So I'm working on that. But yeah, that's probably my next like bucket list hunt that I want to try.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful. I love it. Well, I can't wait to connect with you in person again at SHOT Show here coming up in January and celebrate your success and all that. I'm really excited to have you be a part of the episode and getting to intertwine our stories. It's beautiful, it's powerful, and excited to hear and read the story because you're writing a story about this,
yes,
correct?
yes, I am correct.
So that'll get published hopefully some point in the springtime or when do you think that article would come out?
Um, I'm hoping soon. I've already started it. I have like a pile of articles on my to-do list. Um, but I might bump this one up since it's fresh in my mind. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping soon.
I love it. I love it. Jessyca, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for being a guest on Soul
Yeah.
Seekers. Thanks for being a part of Soul Seekers Nation, right? Like you are now in the family, you're a part of it. You get to carry on that torch, that legacy of mentorship as conservation because you specifically know how powerful hunting has been in your own
Yeah.
life and how when everyone else gets to experience it, it just makes this world a better place, makes them better people. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Guys, if you
Thank you for having me.
yes, absolutely. I can't wait to celebrate your future successes as well. That's going to be huge. Um, guys, for all of you, if you like this episode, go share the podcast, leave a rating, leave a review. Everything helps get the mission out. It is all mission driven. Mentorship is conservation. Yes, I love to hunt, but ultimately I love to transform lives. I love to inspire, provide hope, provide purpose, provide experiences for people. And it's not just up to me, it's up to all of us. You got to be the change you want to see in the world. If you want hunting to last for generations to come, it starts with you talking about it, promoting it, advocating for it, and also bringing more people into the community. So remember, it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And Jessyca, you are now one of the people in the arena. You know the triumph of high achievement, and you've gone through the valleys of the lowness, and you know how powerful and inspiring that is. So thank you once again for being on the show. Guys, remember, hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure, and you can never outgive good, as mentorship is conservation. Be blessed. For Johnny Mack and Jessyca Sortillon, freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating as it helps us share our mission of mentorship as conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure. If you want to get more connected with the podcast, check out the Soul Seekers Nation Facebook group, as I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. So stay tuned and stay soulful.